Your home studio setup is a critical component to the creativity you have as a music producer. So what I want to do is spend some time showing you the steps I've taken in my personal studio to ensure that I feel creative, have the tools I need, and can also have some fun along the way. So here is my personal studio. As you can see, there's a lot going on, but I like to keep it pretty tidy and always have everything that I use close within reach. One of the critical components about having a studio that works for you is figuring out how you work. What do you like to use? How do you like to use it? And what gets you inspired? Building your studio around that with that kind of mentality will definitely make for a much more creative environment. For instance, when I produce, I like to be in the zone and stay forward-facing a bunch. I like to be able to reach for my volume and adjust it whenever I need for my ears, as well as the preamp for any time I'm working with a vocalist or guitarist. Sometimes I have plugins that I don't want to use up on my main screen, so I place them to the screen on my left or sometimes to the screen above me, which also doubles as a TV. And once you've established a workflow and understand what works for you in your studio, you can start to think about the gear you want to buy to fill up your studio. I obviously have a ton of gear here, and I want to take some time going through all of the different pieces of technology I use to feel inspired and stay creative in my studio space. Obviously, the most critical components to any studio are the computer, monitors, and interface that are used. I use an Apple iMac Pro for my main production computer. I have Shape 65 speakers by Focal, and I use Apollo interfaces. I actually have two Apollo interfaces, the X6, which is my main interface, and a Twin X that I use for monitoring and talkback when I'm working with vocalists. The desk I use to house all this equipment is Platform by Output. I can't stress enough about how much I love this desk. It not only gives me the flexibility to have everything in front of me, but I can also upgrade my studio over time with awesome hardware mounting racks. Now, for MIDI controllers, it's important to grab a controller that you know will work for your skill set. I like to have one full-scale piano controller as well as a button-based controller that I can push to do drum grooves. The two controllers I like to use are the Nectar Panorama P6, which you can see pulled out with the piano tray on my output desk, as well as the Ableton Push. Both of these controllers are great, and I like to be able to have access to either one depending on the situation within my production, and it's awesome to have them right in front of me at my fingertips to be able to just instantly jump into whatever it is I need to do. Treating your studio can be great if you have the budget for it, but in reality, you don't really need much to get something sounding okay and good enough for most purposes. I just like to absorb some of the reflections with a bunch of foam paneling on both the front and back wall of my studio, as well as some side paneling on the side walls so that those reflections don't bounce back in. I also use bass traps in the corners to collect any buildup of unwanted low-end frequency content. At the end of the day, it's all about referencing, and as long as you can make good decisions with your environment, you don't need to spend an arm and a leg treating something. Now, in terms of hardware synthesizers, there's obviously so much variety and options here, and it's definitely not essential to make really awesome music, but if you have a budget and you want to have some fun with some third-party synthesizers, you can do so. I have a Roland System 1, which I love to use from time to time to add a little bit more of an analog flair to my music. Again, you can really dive into this world and there's so many options, but as long as you have a decent interface and you can plug this stuff in and use it, feel free to experiment with finding your own cool synths to use. And obviously, beyond just musical stuff, you want to make sure your studio feels at home and is a cool, fun, creative place to work. I love using Philips Hue light bulbs in my studio because it allows me to change the color to anything I want, as well as even make the colors change over time. This is great for when I'm trying to set up a vibe with someone, and I want to make sure that we don't feel like we're in a really, really bright lit room or something that's too dark. I want to be able to have complete control. At the end of the day, your studio space is important. Make sure you put as much effort into it as you do into your creative process, and I guarantee that making music will be much more enjoyable. Be sure to check out our workshops, resources, learning guides, and sample packs. And of course, make sure to scope out our free videos as well.